Hello and welcome. I'm Evan Lapine, Washington Wild's Director of Development and your host for the evening. Thank you all for joining us tonight for our 17th year of hosting Wild Night Out and the 42nd year of Washington Wild protecting and defending our wildlands and waters. I hope everyone at home is dressed to the nines as well, because here at Washington Wild, we dress like this every day. We'd like to kick off our evening showing you a short video about our organization. And as we play the video, we encourage you to introduce yourself in the chat and share your favorite wild place.
On a September evening in 1979, a handful of conservation activists met at the College Inn in Seattle's University District. Hours later, a new organization was born, Washington Wilderness Coalition. Today known as Washington Wild, over the past 40 years, the organization has led efforts to protect nearly 3 million acres of designated wilderness throughout Washington state. Washington Wild brings people together in the vigorous defense of our remaining ancient forests, free-flowing rivers, wildlife habitat, and clean air and water. While much has changed over the past 40 years, our national parks, forests, and other public lands are under increasing threats from unregulated mining, new dam construction, and other development. Key to their success is building powerful grassroots networks and winning coalitions around protecting our public lands and wild places. Join me in supporting Washington Wild's leadership in protecting and defending our local wild lands and waters today and for the next 40 years.
Good evening, I'm Cheryl Rothmuller, and I'm a board member at Washington Wild. We would like to acknowledge that the Washington Wild office and where I'm located this evening is on the ancestral land of the Coast Salish peoples, including the Squamish and Duwamish peoples, past and present. Further, we acknowledge that our organization's work encompasses the traditional lands of all tribes in Washington state. We honor, with gratitude, the land itself and those who have been the responsible stewards of these lands and waters since time immemorial. We encourage you, our attendees, to learn more about the native lands and communities you reside on via the website native-land.ca. Thank you.
Oh, we're back. Just finishing up my eggs as I'm out here camping. Thank you, Cheryl, and thank all of you for joining us tonight. As a small organization, one of our best assets is the relationships we hold within our community and around the state of Washington. There is nothing more that we love than to be around our supporters in person, but hey, like everything else, we're doing what we can with what we got. Tonight, we are going to raise $25,000 to support our work, and with your help, I know we can do it. We're very excited to be giving 3 awards this evening to incredible members of our community and people who are standing shoulder to shoulder with us in our fight to defend the Skagit Headwaters. Scott Schuyler will be receiving our Conservation Voices Award. Richard Brocksmith will be receiving our Karen M. Fant Founders Award. And Yakima Chief Hops will be receiving our Brewshed Alliance Award. But before we get to our awards tonight, I'd like to remind everyone that we are currently hosting an online auction with some really amazing donated items. Some of you are already in the mix and bidding against one another, which is really fun to watch. I know I'm personally going back and forth with a Washington Wild supporter on some Mariners baseball tickets, which I'm currently losing, but I am not done yet, Virginia, so watch out. We have everything on there from cabin getaways, outdoor gear, brewery packages, airline tickets, and plenty of professional game tickets as well. This auction will be running through next week, so we would love to see you and your network of friends, family, and coworkers check it out with proceeds of winning bids supporting our work. So many of you believe in our work, which we couldn't be more appreciative of your support. I want to take a moment to recognize and thank our Wild Night Out sponsors: Safarth, DLA Piper, Recology, Ryan Swanson, Lighthouse Roasters, Icicle Brewing, and Grail, and also the Wilderness Society. We also want to recognize and thank our foundations who keep our work moving forward and give us the long-term support we need to see these campaigns through. We wouldn't be able to do this work without your support year after year, and for that, we are very grateful. Lastly, I want to thank our board for their incredible support and generosity, and also my coworkers. As a team of 5, this team really brings their talent and passion to the mission every day, and they are an amazing group of people to work with. Thanks, guys. We're going to have an awesome time tonight. Next, we'll be sharing with you some inspiring words from one of our current volunteers and climate change activist, Jadison Madrigal.
My name is Jadison Madrigal, and I'm a supporter of Washington Wild and a recent college graduate in my 20s, and my goal is to lead and inspire the next generation of conservationists. Over the last 2 years, it's been great to work with Washington Wild to create content and advocacy videos for the younger audience on social media such as Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Washington Wild works hard to protect and defend wildlands and rivers to keep them safe and thriving, and addresses the increasing impacts of climate change. They do a great job of making action alerts easy. You just go straight to the website and they have the letter written out for you. All you have to do is put your name and information. I appreciate organizations like Washington Wild who make the hard work of protecting our earth and climate easier and more accessible. Thank you for joining us tonight, and together we can make Washington Wild for many generations to come.
All right, thanks Jadison, and thanks to everybody for joining us tonight. I really appreciate you being here. I'm Tom Uniak, I'm the Executive Director of Washington Wild, and I'm going to talk a little bit about a campaign that we're actually in a leadership role on, which is to protect the Skagit Headwaters from threats, including clear-cut mining and clear-cut logging and mining. So many of you may have read about this issue in the newspaper, Seattle Times, over the past 2 years. At issue is a piece of unprotected land, kind of a donut hole, that is surrounded by Skagit and Manning provincial parks up in British Columbia. This is the source of the Skagit River. The Skagit River flows south, quickly enters Washington State, and flows through North Cascades National Park, through the Skagit Wild and Scenic River, that was designated in 1978. It flows through the Skagit Valley, with known for its, tulips, its berries, its hops, and then ultimately lets out into the Puget Sound. So you may be asking, why is a statewide conservation group like Washington Wild working to oppose logging and mining in British Columbia and coordinate an international coalition? Well, we don't often do this, but the reason why is because the threats of that potential mining and logging all flow downstream and affect values that we care about greatly. Some of those values include the Skagit confluence with the Willamette is home to the largest overwintering population of bald eagles in the lower 48 states. Also, the Skagit provides safe and clean drinking water for over 100,000 residents. It is one of the most productive salmon rivers in the Puget Sound, and the Chinook salmon that come out of that river or produced by that river are key to the long-term recovery of the southern killer whale populations that we love and share with our British Columbia neighbors. Ultimately, the Skagit River provides 30% of the fresh water for Puget Sound. And it is incredibly important to First Nations, Washington tribes, to protect their treaty rights and lifeways. So Washington Wild was asked about a little less than 3 years ago to lead this coalition by some conservation recreation groups and local governments. And the reason why was because we've developed a strong reputation for the last 40 years of working with other organizations, doing coalition work. And you know, and we were happy to do so. You can see that the coalition is broad. It includes First Nations tribes. It includes local governments, land trusts, conservation and recreation groups. One of the first things we did was to get about 50 organizations to oppose the proposed mining up in the Skagit Headwaters. 2+ years later, that number has increased to nearly 300 entities that have opposed what's going on up north. I wanted to highlight just a couple of key coalition milestones over the past 2+ years. One is in June 2019. We were getting a lot of media here in Washington State, like the Seattle Times and the Skagit Valley Herald, which was awesome, but we weren't getting any attention in the Canadian media. So the coalition worked to do a paid ad strategy in the Vancouver Sun, and that worked really well. We had about a dozen earned media stories that came out of that effort, and about 6,000 emails into the British Columbia Premier's office. 6 months later, in December of the same year, we got really good news. The clear-cut logging threat was halted by the Minister of Forests in British Columbia. And as you can see from the quote up there, he was really clear why. Because he heard loud and clear about the opposition on both sides of the borders to the impacts that would happen downstream. Earlier this year in June, Richard Brocksmith, who you'll meet later in the program as one of our award winners, did a remarkable job of organizing nearly every local government in Skagit County and land use authority to oppose the mining in the Skagit Headwaters through a resolution or a letter. That's remarkable. The last time that group of folks all agreed on something like an issue like this was probably 40 years ago, when the issue was nuclear power plants. So the pending mining threat is still with us. And so Imperial Metals is the company that is behind this. They have one of the worst reputations in Canada of any mining company. They're responsible for the infamous Mount Polley mine disaster of 2014. You can see an image of that on your screen. The tailings dam broke, spilled 2.6 billion gallons of toxic sludge in the Fraser River watershed, and the company hasn't paid a dime in fines or been accountable in any way for that. This is what we're trying to stop from happening in the Skagit and to the values that we care about so strongly downstream. Over the last 2 years, the strong opposition has worked. The mining permit has not been approved, and that's relevant because mining permits like this in British Columbia end up getting approved usually in a matter of months, and it's 2 years and counting. So what we're doing is working, and we're moving forward. And we need your help tonight to continue to bring this coalition together for the next 6 months. We're trying to raise, as Evan said, $25,000 tonight to do that, to schedule and run and facilitate meetings every 2 weeks between diverse stakeholders and strategically lead the coalition forward. We had some really important conservation grant funding in the past, which was really helpful. We don't have that currently, so we're looking to continue this and get this to the finish line. So please be generous. I'm going to turn it back to Evan to let you know how you can do your part and help us tonight to continue and make sure we protect the Skagit Headwaters and everything that we care about from logging and mining. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. As you can see, this work that we are doing is very important and impacts us all. Now is the time where we need you to all open up your wallets and make that pledge for our virtual paddle race. I'll be announcing certain giving levels, and whenever you want to make that pledge, just type your name and the amount in the chat on the side of the screen. You know, fundraising can be a little bit like mountain climbing. You know, it has its challenges, but when you reach your goal, whatever that may be, it is an awesome feeling. And so to kick us off and get everybody in the giving spirit and to, know that we're going to achieve our goals tonight, this is very exciting. We have an anonymous gift that came to us, and we're ready to share it with you all. This donor is kicking off our paddle raise with a $5,000 donation to Washington Wild. How awesome is that? This isn't one of our typical paddle raise levels, but if anybody would like to make, a gift at the $5,000 level, you're more than welcome to. All right, well, it was worth a try. Our first level of our paddle raise is going to begin at the $2,500 level. And our board president, Andrew Escobar, is going to lead us off with that tonight. Thank you, Andrew, so much for being our board president and for making such a generous donation. Who else can give at the $2,500 level? And let me tell you what that means for us. Making a gift in this amount supports Washington Wild's leadership and coordination of the international coalition opposing. All right, we got another anonymous donor out there for $2,500. Thank you so much. The leadership and coordination on the international level. And to date, this coalition has grown from 50 organizations opposing mining and logging to nearly 300 elected officials, local businesses, and conservation and recreation organizations in both Washington State and British Columbia. Before we move on, give it one more chance at the $2,500 level. That's cool. Just like that, we're at $10,000. This is awesome. Our next giving level is going to be at the $1,000 level. And I'd like to also share that past board member, longtime supporter who couldn't be here tonight, Roger Mellum, is in for $1,000. So thank you so much, Roger. Who else can pledge $1,000 tonight to Washington Wild? Again, let me tell you what we do with that. Washington Wild has coordinated the Skagit Headwaters Coalition's media strategy, which has generated more than 50 pieces in the U.S. and Canadian news outlets to date. A gift tonight of $1,000 will, Doug North. All right. Thank you, Doug, for coming in at $1,000. We love it. Washington. All right. Grow Brewer and Bruce Williams donating from Leavenworth. Thank you all so much. Maureen. All right. Board member Maureen. Thank you for your $1,000. What? Mark Walters, previous board president, in for $1,500, going above the level. Thank you so much, Mark. Virginia Weeks, even though you're beating me out on those Mariners tickets, thank you so much. Fritz, longtime supporter. Deb and Thomas Fenwick, $1,000. All right, this is rolling in. Thank you guys so much. Alan Gibbs, another $1,000. Thank you so much. You guys feel that? There's a buzz happening. We're rolling. This is happening. Thank you guys so much. That was incredible. All right, so just to kind of close this out, again, it helps us generate 6 additional articles, editorials, or letters to the editor and local news outlets on the Skagit Headwaters issue. All right, that was an awesome round. Here we go. Nick Lipsky coming in at $1,000. Thank you so much, Nick. And I love your YouTube photo of you and your family. It's awesome. All right, folks. Feel free to type those in whenever you want, even if you do want to go back and do the $1,000 level, but we'll keep this moving. So next we are going to be moving on to the $500 level. Let's talk about what $500 can do for Washington Wild. A $500 pledge will allow us to continue to work with our tribal and First Nations partners to highlight their opposition to the pending mine due to its impacts on their tribal lifeways and Indigenous rights. Voices of Indigenous peoples about how they are impacted. Terry Howe, thank you so much. And a match through work. Thank you so much, Terry. All right, Roy, thank you. Coming in for another 500. This is great. Going back to Barbara Stein. All right, thank you, Barbara. I know you're also very active on the auction site. So enjoy your cabin stay. Colin and Katie, thank you so much for your generous $750 donation. We appreciate that. All right, Lori, all right, coming in with 500. I know you're also really wanting one of those cabins, so keep bidding high on those cabin getaways on the auction site. Thank you guys so much for your generosity and believing in our work. Richard, thank you so much for $500 donation. Thank you. And again, just, kind of closing this out again with what we were talking about before, the voices of Indigenous peoples about how they've been impacted by the proposed mining are perhaps the most important and powerful on this issue. And that's what, your donations help us accomplish and keep our coalition moving forward. So, all right, I'm doing a lot of moving. We're raising a lot of money. I'm getting a little sweaty. This is great. Okay, on to the next level. We got a couple left. So next we're going to move on to the $250 level. So Washington Wild also is using its connections through our Brewshed Alliance which we're going to talk a little bit more about in the program. And the Brewshed Allowance allows us to bring in compelling new voices and attention to this issue. Ann Uniac, all right, Ann and Tom, thank you guys so much. Whoa, coming at $500. Anna Kimball, all right, $500. Thank you so much, Anna. So with our Brewshed Alliance, Bill Booth, all right, $250. Here we go. Again, talking about new voices bringing attention to this issue. Kevin Kelly, thank you so much for your $250. It helps support engagement and outreach through the release of local collaboration beers sourced from ingredients from the Skagit Valley in Washington State and the Fraser Valley in British Columbia. Lucky Envelope Brewery, Raekwon, thank you so much for your donation. We appreciate it. Patty Barcott, okay, $250. Nice. Jen Pickin, I saw you. All right, and Kevin, wow. It's hard for me to keep up with all these donations. You guys are awesome. David Gold, Margaret Cummings, thank you so much. $250, that's awesome. Ben and Kelsey Curran, I know you love Washington Wild and the Brewshed. Thank you so much for your generosity and support. Love it. Okay, wow. Let's see. And yeah, I think, give everybody one last shot if you're in at the $250 level. Otherwise, we'll keep this going forward. This is awesome. 2 levels left. So next, we're going to be raising our paddles at the $100 level. So will you donate $100 tonight? A donation of $100 will allow us to draft and generate dozens of conservation groups, elected officials, local businesses, and other stakeholders in opposition of this pending mining threat. Over the past 10 years, Washington Wild has established a reputation of generating powerful and diverse sign-on letters on local conservation issues. This is one of the very unique things that Washington Wild does. And, as Tom likes to say, nobody likes to herd cats, but we don't mind it. The more people we get together, the better. So Stephanie Rula, thank you so much for your $100 donation. We really appreciate that. So Patty Barcott, again, okay, another 100. Thank you. Excuse me. So, all right. I think that, yeah. Oh, okay. Wow. Cheryl, Malia Fullerton, thank you so much for your $100 donation. That's awesome. The Vanderbergs, another 100. Wonderful, wonderful. This is awesome. And again, going back to what Washington Wild does really well, all of those names and those logos on that example of the sign-on sheet. Thank you so much, Jessica McCarthy, for your donation. It's getting all of those people together. Richard Brocksmith and Evelyn, thank you so much for your $100. All of those names, they believe in what we're doing, and they want to come together so that we have one voice moving forward, so that we can make that impact together. And that's what we do. It's getting all of these people coordinated together to make this type of impact. And that's what we've been doing, for over 40 years. And so we know that it works. Takes a lot of time and energy, but at the end of the day, it's absolutely worth it. So thank you, everybody who was able to give at the $100 level. Tim Vans, Brendan Cunningham, thank you so much for your $100 gift. We appreciate you and appreciate that. Okay, we are going to move on to our final pledge level, which is the $50 level. And so, just $50 tonight will support Washington Wild drafting and distributing an additional action alert calling on individuals to permanently protect Skagit Headwaters. This is exactly what Jadison was talking in your video. When we put these action alerts out there, we want to make it extremely easy for folks to take action and to know that, we're helping them on that next step. Steve Robinson, thank you so much for that $100. So when we put these grassroots action alerts, out there, we'll put out 20 action alerts generating more than 3,000 messages to decision makers to protect our wildlands and waters. So, it's really being that leader and just showing our community, here's an easy step that you can take, whether it's going to our website, whether it's, we're at a Brewshed, night, out at one of our Brewshed partners. Terry, thank you so much for your $100 gift. I love your picture too, playing the guitar. That's awesome. So again, going back to, just our impact, this stuff works. We love doing it. And that's, just one more layer of what your support does for us tonight. So feel free to continue, to throw pledges in the chat, as we continue on with the rest of our evening. But that was absolutely amazing. Look at all that support we just got in roughly 5 or 6 minutes of coming together for something that we all care about. So you can fulfill your pledge by going to wawild.org, wawild.org/donate to make that donation. And, if you forget, that's totally cool, because I will follow up with you to make sure that you do that for us. What we're going to do is we are going to tally up those totals, and we are going to announce it before the program is done for the evening. So as we move on to the next portion of our program, I'd like to introduce my colleague, Chris Chappell.
Thanks, Evan. Hey, everybody. I'm Chris Chappell. I'm the Conservation Brewshed Program Manager over here at Washington Wild. We've had a really great year with the Brewshed Alliance. We've really grown and expanded, our partnerships with different breweries and beer industry businesses around the state. We brought in some partners from Spokane, out in the peninsula, and we've really put focus on collaborating with our alliance partners and doing cool kinds of partnerships, whether it be virtual events or doing collaboration beers, which are super fun. And then really using those partnerships and collaborations to elevate our conservation work in a really positive and fun way. So without further ado, we're going to move on to the awards section of this evening. And first up, we have Ben Curran, Washington Wild board member and co-owner of the co-owner of the Watershed Pub and Kitchen.
Hi, my name is Ben Curran, board vice president and co-owner of proud Brewshed Alliance partner Watershed Pub and Kitchen in Seattle. The Washington Brewshed Alliance serves as a bridge between the conservation world and the craft beer world. The Alliance works with breweries around the state of Washington to protect their most valuable resource, water. Alliance members assist in conservation advocacy, outreach, and education efforts to protect wildlands and waterways in our great state. Since the formation of the Washington Brewshed Alliance, Washington Wild has given the Brewshed Award to an Alliance member who's done an exemplary job supporting conservation efforts. Past winners include the Latona Pub, Lucky Envelope Brewing, Icicle Brewing, and last year's winner, Balebreaker Brewing. This year, we are very excited to give the award to Yakima Chief Hops. Yakima Chief really stepped up their support of Washington Wild and the Washington Brewshed Alliance during the global pandemic, including co-hosting a virtual discussion with Washington Wild on the importance of clean water to the beer industry and hop production called Hops and Water, providing Washington Wild staff opportunity to speak to hop growers about our mission, signing on to numerous comment letters, and donating hops to Washington Wild beer collaborations with Big Time and Fair Isle Brewing. Accepting the award for Yakima Chief Hops is Levi Wyatt, their corporate social responsibility coordinator. Congratulations, Yakima Chief Hops.
On behalf of the entire Yakima Chief Hops organization, we are so honored to have been nominated, let alone win, the Washington Wild Brewshed Alliance Member of the Year for 2021. Yakima Chief Hops is an organization that is rooted in farming and relies entirely on the earth's ability to provide a bountiful harvest each year. We understand the intrinsic relationship between a healthy planet and a healthy business. As a grower-owned hop supplier, our company was founded on this deep appreciation for the land and understanding that in order to continue providing quality hops to brewers, we must treat this land with respect. Environmental stewardship is a crucial component of our business. We are truly grateful that we have the opportunity to expand our reach by partnering with the incredible members of Washington Wild who actively advocate to preserve those special places we all love. Sourcing our hops from multi-generational farms across the globe, we are dedicated to ensuring that we leave the planet better than we found it for the next generation to come. Our relationship with Washington Wild has allowed us to grow our environmental advocacy efforts for a better tomorrow, and we appreciate all the work they've put into this community. We are so thankful for this acknowledgement and look forward to growing our partnership and impact with Washington Wild.
Greetings from Issaquah, Washington, and thank you for joining us. I am Andrew Escobar, Washington Wild's board president. Each year, Washington Wild presents the Karen M. Fant Founders Award to a volunteer activist who exemplifies the organizing passion and spirit of our founder, Karen Fant. Past recipients of this award include Olympic Peninsula activist Connie Gallant, climbing advocate Matt Perkins, and Washington Outdoor Women's founder Ronnie McGlenn. I am honored to present this year's award to Richard Brocksmith. Richard worked with Washington Wild as part of the Skagit Headwaters Coalition to lead an organizing effort that resulted in resolutions and letters from nearly every Skagit County local government and land use authority to oppose the proposed mining permit by Imperial Metals. Congratulations, Richard, and thank you for your incredible support of Washington Wild.
Well, hi everybody. My name's Richard Brocksmith, and I'm deeply humbled and honored to get this award from Washington Wild. I really appreciated Washington Wild heading up the Skagit Headwaters Coalition and learned a lot through that process, and I think we've been, as a team, very effective. So the Skagit Headwaters Coalition is a group of interested parties who are very concerned about the donut hole and the potential for copper mining in the British Columbia headwaters portion of the Skagit River watershed. So the Skagit River is very important for many different reasons. It's a river of superlatives. Really, it's the largest river in Puget Sound. It's got the largest salmon runs in Puget Sound. It's the most glaciated watershed in Puget Sound. So the threat of a copper mine in the upper Skagit Headwaters is very real. There's examples in Canada where water quality is impacted downstream, sometimes catastrophically, like at the Mount Polley tailings dam disaster in 2014, the largest mining disaster in Canadian history. That mine is overseen by Imperial Metals, the same group who owns the rights to the donut hole in the British Columbia headwaters of the Skagit River. Too much has been sacrificed already by too many people for us to allow a threat like the giant copper mine to go on. And it's time for us to work together to end this once and for all, and to try to preserve these places that we call home.
Hello, I'm Steve Robinson, new Washington Wild board member. I've worked with tribes for 36 years, much of which has been with the Northwest Indian Fisheries Commission and with my mentor, Billy Frank Jr. One of the things I learned through that time is that there is great value in developing and working with allies through government-to-government relations and through association with non-government organizations such as Washington Wild. Each year, Washington Wild presents the Conservation Voices Award to an individual who has used their compelling voice to advocate for the defense or protection of Washington's wildlands and waters. I'm honored to present the 2021 award to Scott Schuyler, Tribal Elder and Natural Resources Director for the Upper Skagit Indian Tribe. As Washington Wild is committed to do a better job of respecting tribal treaty rights and lifeways over the past 2 years, Scott has been a valuable leader and partner in those efforts. He has worked with and advised Washington Wild on a number of critical issues. He has supported the reform of suction dredge mining on rivers and streams to protect salmon habitat. He stood in opposition to proposed mining in the Canadian headwaters of the Skagit River, and he supported the development of meaningful protections for federal lands and waters in the North Cascades. Past recipients of the Conservation Voices Award have included former Washington Governor and U.S. Senator Daniel J. Evans, Patagonian environmental activism manager Megan Wolfe, and Port Townsend Mayor Michelle Sandoval. Scott Schuyler's name will rank highly among these other names for generations to come, and he will long be remembered as a man strongly dedicated to the protection and restoration of fish, wildlife, and other natural resources of the Pacific Northwest.
Good afternoon. My name is Scott Schuyler. I'm a member and elder of the Upper Skagit Indian Tribe. I'm proud to be standing here from our historical village site, the Sabalaque Village of the Upper Skagit, located on the confluence of the Baker and Skagit rivers here in Skagit County. Our people built this palisaded, fortified village to protect and preserve and enhance our culture and preserve all that was important to us. That work continues this very day with our work through Washington Wild, and I'm proud and honored also to be recognized by Washington Wild for doing the work that our ancestors, carrying on the work that our ancestors started thousands of years ago, protecting all that is important to us. The salmon are the centerpiece of our culture. Our people need to continue to fish. We need to make sure that the runs here are sustainable. My ancestor Pateus, when he signed the treaty, had visions of the tribe fishing in perpetuity. Our ancestors practiced sustainable fishing, and we had sustainable runs for thousands of years here on the Skagit. Now, during the last century or so, these runs have become depleted and continue to diminish, and we must continue to work to build these coalitions, support organizations like Washington Wild. We can't do this alone. We need to do this together. And so again, we're proud to be part of this coalition and to continue this work that must be done to preserve our culture and salmon. I humbly accept the Conservation Voices Award on behalf of my ancestors who practice sustainable management of these runs here on the Skagit, and we're going to continue that work together for future generations, for not just the tribes, but all the communities that rely on the salmon and the creatures, great and small, that rely on these salmon runs. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott, Richard, and the entire team at Yakima Chief Hops. By building winning coalitions, we can stop the mining proposal in the Skagit Headwaters and protect the Skagit River for all Washingtonians. The grassroots work Washington Wild does is how we stand out from other environmental organizations, but we couldn't protect areas like Wild Sky Wilderness, Alpine Lakes, or get the banning of motorized suction dredge mining done without our congressional champions. Here's a brief message from one of those champions, Senator Patty Murray.
The mission of Washington Wild to make sure that we preserve low areas where families can have access and for salmon spawning is really critical over the coming 50 years, because that's the kind of wilderness that we will be able to use for generations to come. It's not easy to pass legislation. You have to bring people in a community together, different organizations, bring together a whole coalition of people to get the kind of energy to get legislation through Congress. That's what Washington Wild does uniquely and very well.
All right. Oh man, my shirt is blending in with the background. That's okay. This is the fun part of the show anyway. So I know I said I was done asking you for money, but we have one final ask to throw out there, and this is the fun one. So we've been gifted items from our community partners. That includes an 8-ounce bag of coffee from our great friends at Lighthouse Roasters, a special chocolate sauce from our friends at Hotcakes, a Brewshed token that you can use at Lucky Envelope for a pint, and also a taste of cider from our Two Towns Cider House folks. So anybody right now that pledges $25 in the chat will get one of these awesome community bags that you can take home. There's nothing better than beer, chocolate, coffee, and cider. So we have these things packed, ready to go for you. Again, one final ask to throw out there right before we wrap things up for the evening and give you our final total for the night. So between now and the end of the show, anybody that wants to just say, hey, I'll pledge $25 in there. All right, awesome. We will make sure that we get this delicious community pack out there for you. Again, Lighthouse Roasters, delicious coffee. Lighthouse is actually currently has a Washington Wild blend that has been on their menu as the featured coffee for the past couple months, with $2 of each bag being donated to Washington Wild. So they're great community partners. Hotcakes over the summer did a featured dessert for us with proceeds coming to us. So they're great fans of Washington Wild. And then, you know, with our Brewshed Alliance partners, we came up with these really cool wooden Brewshed tokens, you know, that we want to give out, you know, to our supporters and make sure that, you know, you guys can go and support our brewery partners as well. So, yeah, everybody that wants one, just, you know, throw your name in the chat. And we'll definitely make sure that we get those to you this evening. So as we're wrapping up for the night, you know, we started and we wanted, you know, we set a goal of raising $25,000, you know, to support our work in defending the Skagit Headwaters and all the work that we do here at Washington Wild. And you know, we're very excited and happy to share with you all that our current total as of right now is $30,600. which is awesome. So we beat our original goal by $5,000. It is hilarious that I have no arms on the top here. Didn't think that out, but again, we wouldn't be able, to make this impact without, supporters like yourself. And so thank you so much for what you've done for us tonight. In just 40 minutes, again, we were able to raise over $30,000 for our mission, and we couldn't be more thankful for your support. Well, all right. We wanted to make tonight short and sweet, not keep you guys in front of a screen for too long. So it was super fun as always. Again, we want to thank our sponsors, our foundations, and all of you for your amazing support and for joining us tonight. Please make sure you go to our auction site and outbid your fellow Washington Wild supporters for some of those auction items. You can easily go to the site by clicking on the link that's below the images. Also, I think we're going to have that link in the chat as well. But it's really easy to follow. I think a lot of you have already checked it out. But if you haven't yet, make sure you go over there and, just see what we have, because we have some really awesome packages donated from our community partners. So that auction will be running into next week. So you got a little bit of time. Share the link, with family, friends, and coworkers. It's open to everybody. So, the more the merrier with that. Thank you all again so much for making this a wonderful evening for us and everybody that supports Washington Wild, and have a wonderful evening.